Hey everyone, bringing you your BTC SOL market cap update for today. Not that many closes today. In the short time frame, we've got a 1 day and a 3 day. Got some bigger stuff, but nothing really to present. And we're still going through our weekly moves as it stands. As far as liquidity goes, it's playing out like we've been talking about. So we've built liquidity on both sides. At the moment, people are showing more longs coming in as they're pushing up and they're taking these shorts. So people are starting to chase that on the 1 day. So it looks like it's going to take that 117. In fact, it's probably already there. Yeah, so we're already up there taking that 117 area. And looking at the big cluster on SOL, it looks like it's going to hit that 175 area quite easy on the 1 day. So it's only taken a few days for it to be worth their while to push it up, but it's heading up. Had some news today about some signing of some bit of paper or whatever, so that's probably all the excuse they need to make it bounce up for a bit. On the 7 day, as you can see, we're running a bit short on 7 day shorts to take, so still very capable of getting into that 175, 176 on SOL. As you can see, it's really heavy now to the downside. There's too many people are starting to long, and the short liquidity is getting taken. So, and it's not really until you get to the 30 day that there's still a lot of positions that are open up there. So there are some levels like the weekly level target for SOL is just a smidgen under 180, and looking at the 30 day, that's very achievable. There is a couple of higher things depending on whether it pushes through some of the trends that go all the way up to about 187. But at this stage, it's kind of hard because the next rejection, in theory, should come somewhere between 180 and 187, and there's two different trends to look at. And then that would send it all the way down to start the path down to, say, 153. There's not a lot of 30-day liquidity down there at 153, but you know, when you start to look at the 1 day, you've got plenty down to 164, and if you start to look at the 7 day, then there's plenty down there to about 154. And certainly if it starts moving in that direction, more people will long the dip, and it'll give them that liquidity that they need. So as it stands, all they're really showing us is that they're taking that stuff that was all the bears that were shorting, they're starting to take it, and all the bulls are coming in and starting to long. So they'll be the next victims if they decide to reject. As far as SOLBTC Strength, looks like we're going to break out on the daily, so that should get us that little push. There'll be some resistance just in here at that 1.14984. Sorry, 0.0014984 area. It's hard to say what kind of resistance that's going to be. It's more likely once this breaks out that it's going to want to try and head up to one of the upper trends. I'm still thinking we're going to start heading up towards that 0.00166 area. So when this breaks on the daily, this trend is going to move, and so if it does get sold down, and we've seen this a wee bit recently, if it gets sold down just prior to close in the next couple of hours, then they could open under trend and just keep us a bit more sideways for a bit longer. So it all comes down to what they really do in those final moments. The 2 day is still stuck like that. So, you know, it was sold down here just under the resistance. It's still holding trend. But, you know, if it can get up over that the next day and close, that'd be good. And the 3 day is also looking for a breakout. So the 3 days quite a clean chart, really. Bounced off the lower trend. If it pulls back a little bit, it'll go into distribution and then it won't break that trend. Ideally, you just want to see that little pump towards the end of the day, get the wick off the top of that candle, shift the trend to there. Even as it currently stands at this strength level, it will open, or it can open the next candle on the other side of that trend. Then from there, it should be able to go up and target that upper trend, and that's where you're starting to see that 0.0016 level. There is a break level just below there. Sorry, break level just there. That's also resistance, but at 0.00148. But it's not a hard closed. So it was hard closed from the top side here, and it's deviated below it. Unless we get a blue 3-day close down here where we're not really losing that level. So yeah, again, it'd be nice to get a little pump up there and get above that level and open up and then go for these higher targets. And maybe we have that sort of bullish pump or sweep. But in the next 2 hours, like I say, they can still sell this down and cause a non-break of that trend. All they have to do is flip it down just a tiny bit, and it's a non-break. So let's have a look at the market cap. So this has really started to overextend beyond its trend, really. It's pushed back up into some of these ranges that are up inside here. The exterior trend's all the way out there, and we've got that hold level sitting there at about 355.22. So yeah, if it was to close here, it's back up inside some of these ranges, but at the same time, it's also just hovering below a rejection, and it's overextended from the trend. So that just looks kind of trappy. Looks like maybe they're just going to push up into that and then just come banging back down here. And it could go straight back through that trend because realistically, that's not broken. It's basically just been dived from the other side of it. So that's how we're looking there. It's the same. The 2-day obviously hasn't closed yet and still has another day to go on it, but as you can see, it's really just overextended through the 2-day trend, pushing up. Yeah, I look at that kind of thing and I think to myself, what are we in for? And the answer is probably a pullback somewhere in the next few days. And if we look at the 3-day, the 3-day will break. I'll just do that. 3 days pushing into resistance. It will break this trend. Now, the thing about breaking that trend is it actually creates an origin level of this break level. So 337.93 will become an origin level of this range. If all that candle has to do is close yellow, and basically that is created. So that could introduce a bit of, I suppose you'd call it, random strong support. It's very similar to when everyone was sort of expecting 68k on BTC, and then it built a 3-day origin level around 75 or 76, and then bounced off that and went to all-time high. It kind of left everybody waiting. So from a market cap perspective, seeing this kind of thing develop makes you wonder, do too many people want to see 110k BTC, and is it just not going to happen? Because while everyone waits, they're going to produce something that can send this up higher, and so it's a possibility. We might still get a rejection off these upper trends. We're also starting to see a channel form. So these kind of parallel trends tend to indicate some form of future movement in that channel. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But this will be the new trend, which will come through here. At the current point, it's going to hit the backside of that and reject down. But if it closes yellow, creates an origin, and then even if it does close here, a move to that trend, a rejection back to this could send it. So that's something to keep an eye for. See what kind of volume comes in if it comes down to these levels. So if you see this coming down to 337.93 after this close, just keep an eye on the volume. If you suddenly see a huge spike in volume, then I'd say that thing's kicking off. And you can tie that up with all the other confluence that might be going on and other tokens, etc., around the place at the time. So let's have a look at BTC. So it went up and got our 117 target. It's overextended from trend on the daily. It really comes down to how it closes. If it closes above, then we might continue to move up into more or less a blow-off top scenario. If it closes below, then the natural thing to do is reject back to trend. So that's, and we've also got this daily range trend, which is actually down below the daily global trend. So I'm sort of thinking that we should really be. There's no, it's not a broken trend. It's just a created trend, so it doesn't need a retest or anything. But it's just interesting that they've made it. They haven't used it, so it's there. I also think this never actually quite achieved its level either. So when we look at that candle, I know sometimes this stuff can be a little bit pedantic, but when you create a hold level like that and you reject down from it, and you get within $50 of the target, and then it stops, and you've got this range trend down here which hasn't been touched, it sort of just makes you wonder, like, why have they left these levels? Is that the plan? To wick down to here, have another bounce, and maybe close under that trend. So because they can bounce between these range trends and these normal trends, so maybe that ends up closing below there, and then that gives you the down. So yeah, as it stands, 1 day BTC, it's hit the levels that I was expecting it to get to. It took a few days. From here, I would be more inclined to say that we close under that and reject. But it doesn't really look like it's had a liquidity sweep yet, so you don't know. It might continue up and have a bit more of a sweep before coming down. So for the 2 day, 2 days still below trends. It's moving its way up. It hasn't broken this downtrend yet because the candle isn't closed. So it may head into this area up here and reject off. If it does push up to sort of 118, etc., it's just going to run into those 2 day range trends. And a really bullish sign would be to actually close the 2 day close tomorrow above here. If we did that, it's going to have a pretty good chance of bouncing off the backside of that and going finding price discovery again. So 3 day, 3 day went below trend, never lost it. It found that backside there. So the 111 or nearly 112k bounce has managed to sustain accumulation. So we never got a distribution close below the 3 day, so therefore the price never fell through the floor. So that's good. And we've got that hold level there at 117.8, which it could be where it's heading. It may not go there prior to close, because if you want this to really have a chance of recapturing this trend through here, what you want is you want that price just to stay above the trend but below the rejection. And if you do that, then at least it can become a little bit of a fight in this area. But if you actually go up and hit that too quickly, you might just come back down here again, then lose that trend, or have to spend another 3 days trying to recover it, etc. So yeah, the targets are still there, because backside rejections are generally not sustainable. So coming off a 112 level, when you've got something in the 110s, normally this one will move a trend, which means you might get another, because that one is not going to move the trend. So you might break the interior. What does it actually look like? Yeah, so this might actually be, got to zoom right in. Touching? It's not touching. Yeah, it's not touching. Okay, so this, the 3 day backside is breaking the interior trend, so that's kind of its job. It would move that to there. If the wick comes down a bit and it rejects off the underside of that, or that hold level, then that would probably then go to the front side. So Yeah, so those lower targets are probably still in play. It's just making it look really bullish for now. So let's have a look at SOL. SOL on the daily. It's nearly got to that 175 area. So the weekly levels on SOL are actually more in the 180, and we do have liquidity up there. So we might go there. We're also extended from the trend, so it looks like it's pushing up into resistance and basically just asking for us to chase them with longs. But realistically, if you'd opened a long, it should have been down here on the trend rather than chasing the candle that's already 99% of the way there. So yeah, there's a lot of areas just through here on various different time frames. I'm not quite sure which one of these, if any of them, is going to be the rejection, or whether it's just going to keep going through to the weekly, or even things like this up here where you've got trends up here at about in the 190s, the high 190s. It could even go to those. There was a little gap left here as well, which is something that typically is an inconsistency that will get recovered later. So when they went back up here and they rejected just prior to the hold level and took this dump, that was 195.231, and it should have gone to 195.76. So if you trace back this trend, that candle was the break, and once you actually break that trend, you target the hold. For it to have stopped 50 cents short of that hold is irregular, and it sort of says this entire thing is just one big trap, and it may go back up to there. So moves to there, moves to there, and we're overextended. So yeah, so for me, I'm taking some profits here, and then I'm going to aim for the weekly, and then I'm going to leave a little bit in play just to see if we go up to these levels, one above the 180s and even into the 190s. I can't see us having a clean pass through of 200 without a rejection off the daily trend, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. So 2-day, it's looking like it wants to create a hold level. I mean, a lot can change in a day, as you know, in the world of crypto, but it looks like it wants to create a hold level. It looks like it wants to break the interior trend. We'll see. The moves for the 2-day are, same sort of levels, everything around the 170s, then into the 180s, and so on. It's actually this sort of trend through here, which I'm thinking is going to reject. See, we've already got a trend here in those low 180s on the 2-day, and that's confluent with the weekly and various other timeframes. And in one more day, we'll have a hold level down here. So even if this does break to the upside, it'll probably go hit that trend and come back down here. And that would be classed as a 50% pullback of the 2-day range, and it'll be just pretty normal price behavior. So on that, but we'll have a better idea about that tomorrow. And if we look at the 3-day, so 3-day trend is currently there. It's going to break the 3-day trend as long as it stays above 169-ish today. So where are we? 169.459. We need to stay above that for the next 2 hours if we want to have a break of the interior 3-day trend, in which case the inverse resistance, the first resistance, is that 175 level. And it may be a good justification for them to not touch that level this side of close, because if they touch it and they reject off it, they may not break the trend. It's just going to be more sideways for longer, really. But so it might hover around here for a bit, break the trend, and if it breaks the trend, then that's still the first resistance, but it's more likely that then you've got a 190 target comes into play. Even though that's above the weekly levels and stuff like that, and it may not just go there in a straight line. It might go up and then come back down, etc. But it's more likely you'd have that 190 level in play. I actually can't quite figure out what time frame this range is on. I've looked through just about everything trying to figure it out. It's not actually that's not a 3-day range because it's 3 candles, but it's nothing else either. It's kind of a funny one, but it is an equal range with 3 up, 3 down, so it's the levels are correct. And then just one quick look at the really high time frame stuff on SOL. So we shifted a lot of these really high time frame trends recently, and we've created some hold levels down here, like in the 150s, and we are heading back towards those trends now. So there's a lot of time left on these candles, 29 days, etc. So it's hard to know whether they'll keep pushing, then break. But if you start to see, just like if you start to see volume coming in any of these low areas, then you'd probably know that, hey, yep, we're going to bounce big time. But you'd also just want to be very careful about once we get to these sort of, that trend is about 179, and that's a really old trend from very, very, very beginning of the 2021 top, really. And yeah, as you can see through there, it's always been a bit of a problem. So yeah, it's a pretty critical area, and we've spiked through it before when we've had massive bullish sentiment, etc. But it always ends badly because we're starting from the wrong side of it. Yeah, once again, we are starting from the wrong side of it. So um, either that sort of 180 level, which is very confluent with the weekly, um, or that 190 level could quite easily send us back to this 153 level. So just keep that in mind. If you're longing now, you are longing into some pretty big resistance, which can be a little unpredictable because of the time frame it's on. But you're definitely anything past those levels, you want to start taking profits because yeah, you could easily reverse, and if it does reverse, then it's going to basically break through anything that's in there because a weekly isn't going to stand up to a 31-day move if it's coming all the way down to 153. And the reason there's even more confluence in there is if we actually look at our weekly stuff running. So here's our weekly. We have this support, which is trying to push to that level, which is really, really in line with where some of that bigger stuff is. We have a broken normal trend, and we have a range trend, but that's the range trend. So the first candle to close into that high, and that's up there as well. And that's never been hard closed, and it's not had really not had a candle come from the underside. I suppose this one, which went through, got the liquidity and came back down. So that area in there could be pretty problematic. And the main reason it's problematic is we still have that, which is that 153 area. So this is very much like what you can see on that 31-day chart. We're inside of whatever range this is. We haven't hit the break level at the bottom here. We haven't touched the hold level. We've bounced off the trend. We're heading back to a horizontal level. But if we reject that horizontal level, it's probably, it's at least going to want to come back to this trend. If it's got enough time on the candle, then it's probably going to want to dive the trend and grab the liquidity from the hold level down here. So, yeah, I'd just say be very careful. I wouldn't chase this pump necessarily. And if you do, then you're really, really close to where you want to start taking some profits, like 175 plus. Definitely want to start taking some profits. Yeah, 175, 179, 181. anything in those sort of areas, and just make sure you take enough profits that you can actually cover your stop. What you could look at doing is take enough profits that you can bring your stop down below the range here without actually losing out on the position. It would probably make your position quite small based on very little amount of move left to go up there and quite a bit to go down there. But if it comes down to this weekly level here, you'll be able to actually add to your position. And if it drops below that trend down to this weekly level, the dive will take it back up to or above the trend. So yeah, entering down there, TPing back up here when it goes to the backside of the trend. If it spends too much time at this level and closes down here, then it will push back up here anyway after the close, but you just close your position because the chances are, well, let's not talk bear markets, but the chances are that that's when it's going to reject off the back of the weekly, which wouldn't be overly positive for reaching a new all-time high. But yeah, as it stands so far, I think we're just going to be heading up there, keep an eye on those levels, see how it plays out. Been a bit of a slow one, this one. It's kind of, the moves have been there. I don't know they're coming, but just waiting. For some reason, they all seem to come during New York sessions this week. It's as if London and Hong Kong are just asleep, so just busy inducing liquidity. But yeah, I'll bring some updates through if anything interesting happens. But yeah, hopefully you get something out of that. And yeah, like and subscribe. And we're still on a mission to try and get to 500 subscribers on YouTube. I think that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, talk again soon. Cheers. Bye.